A gościem Onet Rano Wiem jest Frederic Faroche, dyrektor generalny Grupy Veolia w Polsce, prezes zarządu. Good morning, Mr. President.
Dzień dobry, good morning.
Bonjour. Future of the planet, of our Earth. Why it is so important to you, to Veolia? What does ecological transformation mean to you? How it started?
Yeah, thank you for the question. If you remember, the idea of the Earth Day started back 50 years ago, roughly in the 70s, when there was an accident, an oil spill in USA, in Santa Barbara in California. Like always, almost we needed a disaster, let's say, to start to be conscious about our planet. The positive thing, obviously, is that this is where it started, and since then, once a year, we have this day. This year, the theme of the Earth Day is Invest in Our Planet. Well, I believe it is quite important and the time to do that. For the past 200 years, you know, we have been extensively doing the opposite. We have been drilling the planet for all its resources, oil and gas, always deeper the coal, deeper the oil. But not only, also harvesting countlessly for food, obviously, different species. When it comes to fish, for example, we have almost exhausted some of the resources, if you remember the cod, for example. And these days, experts are saying that our soils are getting more and more poor, so it sounds like it's burning everywhere. So yes, I think it's at least investing, or at least protecting the planet is a must these days. It becomes extremely crucial. As a company, as Veolia, we have given ourselves a purpose. A purpose is what we call in French raison d'être, reason for being, reason for existing. We believe that the company exists because it is useful and not the opposite, okay? So we exist for our stakeholders. Our stakeholders are clients, employees, shareholders, but also the society in general, and ultimately the planet. The planet is our biggest and most important stakeholders, and we set all our goals and activity to be useful to those stakeholders.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that activities, and I want to ask you what kind of responsibility should be imposed on companies from the energy sector? What responsibility do you feel as a head of one of them?
Yes. Well, obviously, the first one is to cut drastically the greenhouse effect gas emission to the atmosphere, and this is the main goal for all the companies. The CO2 should be cut. We try to avoid a global temperature rise. We try to target 2 degrees or even 1.5. For this, we need to drop and to cut our emissions of greenhouse gases by roughly 50% by 2030. It is a very big target. And on the other hand, the reports, United Nations reports, show that with today's activity, on the opposite, the emission would rise by some 20%, you know, and then we would not meet the target of the 2 degrees or 1.5, even better, but rather 3 degrees. So all the countries have to commit on this target of, let's say, cutting by half the emissions of CO2 by 2030. This is what we are doing. Now, there are a couple of challenges. First of all, we need to convince all the countries to do so. Some are still struggling for development, so we have to support them in a way that their roadmap to development is less carbon intensive, let's say. We have also to work on changing individual behaviors, I think. Energy efficiency, and especially in Poland, can play a key role. There is still a very big reserve in tackling this challenge. Auto producer scheme, for example, like in photovoltaic, is very well developed in Poland. This is a good way of helping with emissions, switching to electromobility or public transport, and maybe also a bit about the waste, producing maybe less waste and recycling it. Is all sorts of challenges that not only companies but also state and individual must achieve in order to fight against the climate change.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it is impossible to avoid the climate crisis. We know that. But do you think, as you said, it's enough to limit effects of climate crisis, climate change?
Well, I think we as Veolia, we believe we can still cope with the targets, but we need to start now. And all the actors should start now. In our plans, let's say, we still believe we can cope with the targets by 2030 and 2050.
It's ambitious, Mr. President.
Yes, it's a very ambitious plan, but it's an iterative plan also. What is today really clear is, let's say, the road to 2030. We want to phase out completely from coal by 2030. With this, we would achieve some 50-55% reduction of our footprint. And after, what is from 2030 to 2050, obviously will be precise with the time going when all the technologies will become more and more available. Then we will adjust our way to the carbon neutrality in 2050. So in short, yes, it is still possible, but there is no time to lose.
Of course. Could you tell us what kind of actions do you take for the planet as Veolia? Could you give us some examples how it looks like in the cities of Poland?
Yeah, I will tell you what. First of all, we have been active in Poland as Veolia for 25 years. This is this year our anniversary. In mostly in energy and water. So our mission is resourcing the world, let's say. So we try to base all our activity. We operate in energy, water, and waste. The whole group. We try to base all our activity on circular economy principles. Mm-hmm. It's kind of easy to explain. The principle is to use as less as possible of the resource. If really we need to use it, then we should be as efficient as possible. And when we use already the resource, we should always recycle it so that we send it back to the operations. Let's say, and we apply this simple principle to the three activities of the group. This year we've published, by the way, our impact report, which is showing what we have done, how we measure and how we reduce our impact on environment. If I may say, over those past 25 years, we have invested more than 1 billion zloty to reduce our impact. I would, if you allow me, I would name a couple of subjects. We've worked on sulfur oxides emission, which were almost fully cut, by more than 90%. Also on nitrogen oxides, which were reduced by more than 80%, and the dust and all emissions that are followed for our activities were almost also fully cut. As I said, our future plan, I told you about phasing out the coal and achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. This is for the business, but we are not only doing business, we are also working for one of our stakeholders, which is the society and the planet. So we are supporting a certain number of educational programs. For example, responsible distribution of water in Warsaw. The campaign was called Kocham Warszawę, łapię deszcz szówką. I love Warsaw. I catch rain, sorry. We also engage our employees in different actions to protect biodiversity or to restore ecosystems. We have launched 50 initiatives, and 600 volunteers participated in these programs, where we planted, for example, 50,000 trees. That's it. I could be longer, but I want to stay short for you to keep follow me.
Yeah. How much will the energy transformation cost, and how to make it fair? Who should pay the most?
Yes, well, that's the main question. The energy transformation is a tremendous cost. This is it's counted in years of proceeds of the companies. So obviously the idea would be that this transition would be just. By just, it means that the bill has to be shared. It cannot be only supported by the clients. It cannot be only supported by the companies. And the government and EU have to play a very important role also in that. So the idea is that the bill would be shared amongst all the participants to make it sustainable.
What do you think when Poland will manage to give up coal, and can the war in Ukraine or sanctions imposed on Russia accelerate that process or delay?
Well, it should accelerate the transformation, because obviously we would like all to be less dependent on different fuels, and namely on the fuels imported from Russia. So I hope in the long term it should accelerate. Now on the short term, this has created big disruption of the market, and on the short term we need to adapt and rebuild our different strategy. But we keep the same way, the same path.
What will be the most important fuel in 2050 here in Poland? What is your opinion?
I guess for us, obviously electricity will be green electricity, and we will try to electrify as much as possible of our needs, provided the electricity is green. So I would think there would be a mix of green electricity. Nuclear is probably an option interesting for Poland also. And for us in district heating, we target a lot green gases that will replace the gas that we envisage only as a transition fuel. After biomass has proven to be sustainable in Poland, so we could use biomass only for its sustainable part. And the last but not the least, waste to energy has also an important role to play in Poland for us in our plans.
Let's do it together. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Gościem Onet Rano był Frederic Faroche, dyrektor generalny Grupy Veolia w Polsce, prezes zarządu. Thank you one more time. I życzę dobrego dnia i panu naszemu gościowi i oczywiście wam wszystkim do zobaczenia. To będzie oczywiście Międzynarodowy Dzień Ziemi, więc weźcie sobie to pod uwagę.